I looked in that mirror when they were waking me up from the kind of drug-induced coma and obviously rousing me for the first time there. And honest to God, I mean, I didn't know how the hell I was ever going to make forward steps, if you get what I'm saying. I mean, I just felt like this, is it worth it? And what happened on the day, very fortunate, I got airlifted from the scene. I got a helicopter to Orlando Regional Health Centre about 20 minutes later. And probably we're talking 20, 25 minutes through the airspace. And it was lucky for me because this was probably akin to, you know, best hospital on planet Earth, literally, because they deal with a lot of burns. Because Florida's a bit of an adventure playground, right? And it's in the sun. There's a lot of stuff that's going on. And those doctors, those nurses, those specialists were the best in the world at what they do. And they picked me up from the helicopter and they put me back together again, more or less, you know, like Humpty Dumpty. But I was with them for 6 months. So can you believe that? They put me out, so they drug-induced me for 6 months. No joke. Almost close to 2.7 million US dollars on medical insurance.
Wow.
And they did this.
So you're in an induced coma, essentially. What's that like? Because I know when I've had general anaesthetic, it feels like no time's passed.
Now, I've got to be honest, mate. I mean, truth is, that's a question I can't really answer because you're drug-induced. So in terms of the cognition or the state of sort of cognitive, awareness, you don't have a clue what's going on. You literally don't have a Scooby. They're so clever at what they do, and they can literally titrate the solution that they're giving you. So what they can do is they can add a bit more analgesia to the mix, that you've got an intravenous kind of cannula going into the vein. They can press a couple of buttons on the machine, add a bit more analgesia drug to the mix or put you to sleep. But they can also add a bit more diluent or to dilute if they want. So let's say you've got a medical doctor coming in to talk to you about something important, or perhaps a family member or an important guest coming to visit you during that 6 months. They can add the diluent and they can wake you up. And you can have a full-blown, lucid conversation, allegedly, and talk about what you need to talk about. But the truth is, I don't remember any of that because they did say you'll never remember this 6 months. And indeed, I didn't remember. The first, if you like, awareness that I had was getting back to the burns unit in Chelmsford in Essex. And I kid you not, suddenly, it's like a rude awakening. And I don't mean this nastily to the good people of Essex, but suddenly I've got this Essex nurse bending my ear. And I'll be honest, I'm still working on this accent when I sort of tell the tale. But she's like, all right, Jamie, we've got to get you moving now, love. We've got to get you up and about. We've got to get you moving now. And what she meant by that was that we've got to get you sat up in bed and we've got to get you starting to rehabilitate. But for the listeners, this was like tenfold Mount Everest. So I had to learn to feed, to write my name because my hands are all crippled, to walk all over again. I was fundamentally now Jamie Hull, just starting out on version 2.0, right, to put an analogy on it.
Yeah.
Right, but I was ground zero, literally building stepping stones to come back to some semblance of what we call normality.
Right.
Yeah, and like the new life.
Yeah.
In the new body, in the new skin.
Wow.
And it was a nightmare in the early days because I got this Essex nurse, lovely woman, I'm sure, bending my ear, or what ragged ear I had left, because the surgeons had to cut that away in America because it was so badly mullered. And she's trying to rehabilitate me, and it was hell on earth. The next thing, she brings me a mirror, and I've got to take a look at myself. And I honestly, I felt like the Elephant Man in the room, or a distant cousin of the Elephant Man. You know, I mean, I looked hideous at that stage. My face, because of recent skin grafts, I'd had skin grafts around the eyes, so upper and lower eyelid grafts, the full Monty. And I'd had all this intensive kind of cutting-edge pioneering burns medical interventions in Florida, and indeed the surgeons in Chelmsford. And I looked like hell.
Was that the first time you'd seen yourself?
Yeah, I looked in that mirror. That was like day one, 6 months later in Chelmsford. when they were waking me up from the kind of drug-induced coma and obviously rousing me for the first time there. And honest to God, I mean, I didn't know how the hell I was ever going to make forward steps, if you get what I'm saying. I mean, I just felt like this, is it worth it?
Really?
Is this shit worth it?
Really?
Honestly, I mean, it was tough, man. I was in a dark place because suddenly it was like the reality of what had happened 6 months before dawned on me. Because like I'm waking up, and bearing in mind this was day one, sort of compos mentis, coming out of this drug-induced coma, like trying to realise, okay, the absolute, the realisation, if you will, of what had happened, the new life that I was going to be living. And it was clear to me, it was obvious. Life as I knew it, never going to be the same again. So when they talk about life-changing injury, hands up, I got that badge, and that's not really, the greatest boast. You wouldn't want that badge. You would not want life-changing injury. Trust me, you wouldn't want it.
No.
Because true life-changing injury is exactly that. And it happened to me. So it was a case of, how am I going to deal with this? And it's not a sob story as such, but how was I going to deal with that? And how was I going to move forward? And that wasn't an easy sort of mountain to climb. And trust me, it felt like a massive game of snakes and ladders. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And this went on for years. And without going into the nitty-gritty about rehab, in a nutshell, as testimony goes, I was still in the hospital for a further 1.5 years. So I didn't get out of hospital for 2 years.
Wow.
The irony is I was 63% burns, but I've actually had to date 63 ops under general anaesthetic. So they had to knock me out 63 times to repair everything. And it was orthopedics for bone work that I'd had done. General surgery, they had to open me up down the torso 3 times for laparotomy on different occasions. I had a multitude of human donor skin, pig skin, synthetic skin, my own skin, all these various skin ops, these so-called skin graft ops, okay, by a bunch of skilled surgeons over the course of those years, and great consultants I've had over the years, and it's been like a cabbage patch sort of work in progress to get me where I am today.
Right.
And I'd like to think they've done a pretty reasonable job.
They've done an incredible job.
Yeah, I mean, I feel a lot better in myself. I look in the mirror now, and I still see the scars. And don't get me wrong, I don't dig what's happened, but I've learnt to accept it. So for the record, 3 years of physical, and I don't say that lightly, because I had to learn to walk and kind of slowly rehabilitate myself in the physical sense, and eventually went on to do challenges and God knows what. But 5 years here, and a lot of listeners won't get that. From that injury, it took me 5 years up here to fully accept it. And what I mean by that is to find my mojo all over again, and find my human spirit, and accept. And that's what the acceptance is, the mojo, the human spirit. And once you find that human spirit, then you can really start to walk a path to go forwards. And you can start to develop, as the old saying goes, motivation, newfound ambition. But it was fair to say that the old body wasn't there. The old athlete that I was, like a kind of a, like an all-star sort of track athlete. I might as well have been some quarterback punk from back in the day. I was doing this thing and I was running with the squadron with the SAS reserve and, a lot of achievements and accomplishments. That was all out the window. That guy had gone. And I had to accept that. And it was a bitter pill to swallow because suddenly I was version 2.0 and I had disability. I had nerve damage from muscle loss and some nerve damage in the lower limbs, and walking wasn't as easy, and I was up against it. But over the passing of time, not only did I learn to walk, but I learned to challenge myself, push the envelope. The same sort of character started to push through. And before too long, I was setting myself up goals to walk 8 miles a day. And I think if you do the math, I was walking 2,500 a year, 2,500 miles in my 3rd year. Then I did a couple of marathons for charity. It's not so much of a boast, but it's testimony to what can be achieved with the human spirit despite disability and life-changing injury. If you're hungry for the process and if you want something badly enough, you can still achieve, albeit you might have a slightly reduced toolbox. So my toolbox was never going to be the same again. The body was changed. But I started to believe in myself, and friends around me. This is important to say this. It wasn't just me. So medical staff, doctors, nurses, specialists, physiotherapists, as well as good mates, would rally around me at the time, or ex-colleagues from the forces would get behind me and sort of chaperone me around the London Marathon route and give me that true sense of encouragement. And you need that. I needed that in the early years. And charities like Help for Heroes, Blesma, the Pilgrim Bandits, they all kind of rallied around and got behind me. I was fortunate as a beneficiary. I was invited on a lot of wonderful challenges, expeditions. So all in all, over the years, like the support mechanism I've had as a beneficiary of sort of UK Armed Forces charities and a lot of good folk along the way has helped me, if you like, as Jamie Hull version 2.0, to believe in myself once again and sort of push the envelope on a few things in life and hopefully encourage others along the way.
Oh, I've got no doubt about that. Truly inspiring story, mate. I mean, how are you doing mentally today?
This wasn't an easy roller coaster of a ride. And remember what I said, 3 years of physical kind of healing. And again, in the hospital 2 years, another year at home with district nurses and all this. And then 5 years to accept it mentally.
Right.
And I don't say that lightly because for 5 years I was in a very dark place. I almost lost the mojo completely and I almost threw the towel in at one stage. And luckily I got the intervention of someone from the the religious kind of clergy, and a gentleman stepped in and sort of talked to me and gave me a lot of support. And eventually I pulled myself out of that long sort of dark tunnel and I was able to sort of move on in life. But it took me a long time to properly accept it. But I felt that once I did properly accept the new version of who I was and the look and the acceptance and the changing face, if you will, that there was no going back. And that therefore I was committed to the journey forwards and to make the very best of the life that I had left. So in my mind, I kind of committed to taking the horns once again. I meant the horns of the bull of life and riding that kind of rodeo going forwards. And I wasn't going to go back. And I've got to bloody well hold on now, haven't I? Because, the bull can chuck us off at any time.
Yeah. I mean, the way you picked yourself back up after the bull chucked you off the first time, I think you'll be a huge inspiration to a lot of people out there as well. People with facial disfigurements and stuff like that will look at your story and take a lot from it. You're a true inspiration, mate.
Low level now, so 400 feet, 300 feet. And I looked at my feet and my ankles and suddenly the flame was starting to lick or lap around my feet and ankles.